Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today we're going to learn more about the Broadway series in Oklahoma City downtown and the way that the philanthropists helped to fund the wonderful entertainment options in Oklahoma City.
Well, they really are wonderful and they've got a lot of them. I want to point out our coffee cups today, the Lion King coffee cups. You might tell them what yours says on the back.
Well, it says on the back, I'm surrounded by idiots.
Yeah, well,
Is that from the play, The Lion King?
Yes.
I saw it years ago,
Yes,
but I don't remember that line.
That's a Scar line, as I recall, Jeremy Irons. We've entitled this show "Give My Regards." In other words, give my regards to Broadway, because you're right. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to have Elizabeth Gray in visiting with us today about not only OKC Broadway, but also the Civic Center Foundation.
Wonderful. Elizabeth Gray is our guest today. She is the executive director of the Civic Center Foundation, and we'll have more with Elizabeth when we get back.
In the early 1800s, Davy Crockett of Middle Tennessee was a neighbor to the Chickasaw Nation. He was a frontiersman who saw the sovereignty of Indian nations as the very foundation of this country, and Crockett took his ideals to Congress. So when President Jackson's Indian Removal Act came up for a vote, Crockett spoke from the heart.
4 counties of my district border on the Chickasaw country. I know many of the Chickasaws, and nothing should ever induce me to vote to drive them west of the Mississippi.
Crockett voted his conscience, effectively ending his political career. Indian removal became law. Davy Crockett left for Texas, and we took our future to Indian Territory. Chickasaw history is American history in the world we share today.
Hello there and welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
We're really pleased today, as we talked about in the opening segment, to have Elizabeth Gray join us this morning. She is the executive director of the Civic Center Foundation, and she oversees the OKC Broadway project, which is affiliated with the foundation. Elizabeth did her undergraduate work at the University of Oklahoma. She has significant business background, both here locally and domestically, and also overseas. In 2012, my partner, Mayor Mick Cornett, wisely appointed her to the Civic Center Foundation Board. In 2015, she took over as executive director of the foundation. And in addition to her foundation duties, she oversees the OKC Broadway project, which is part of what we're going to talk about today. Elizabeth, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Give us background on these two organizations and the overlapping interests that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Civic Center Foundation, along with the City of Oklahoma City, which manages the Civic Center Music Hall, made a strategic decision to change the Broadway presenter last season, and that was in part to keep a big majority of the profits in Oklahoma City and more importantly in the Civic Center Music Hall to reinvest for capital improvements, major maintenance, and also to, you know, it's a rising tides lifts all boats for the other arts organizations that use the building as well. So it's really helping out the arts community. So the foundation partnered with the Nederlander organization out of New York to create what is now known as OKC Broadway. So the Nederlander organization is is often called the royalty of the industry. They've been around for about 100 years in the Broadway industry specifically, and they own dozens of Broadway theaters, both in New York, London, Chicago, all over the world.
I'm not sure a lot of people understand just how many different user groups there are inside the Civic Center. If you only go once or twice a year, you might think that the act you saw has the facility 12 months a year, but there's a lot of different organizations that rely on the Civic Center for their performances.
Absolutely. There are some top-notch organizations, really. We've got the Oklahoma City Philharmonic, the Oklahoma City Ballet, Lyric Theater of Oklahoma, Canterbury Voices, and we've got a lot of smaller organizations that present smaller productions in the building as well. City Rep, Oklahoma City Theater Company, and we're really fortunate to have such a variety in the building and to have really high-class entertainment options.
But I'm guessing the Broadway series has got to be one of the more popular as far as season ticket sales.
It is. It's one of the larger, just because we do, each Broadway show that comes in, we have 8 performances of it, so it spans for about a week. So that brings a lot of people into the building, and which is great to get people in and experiencing arts that they might not otherwise be exposed to.
The performance that's about to begin next week of The Lion King, now that's going to be here for a little more extended run, is it not?
Absolutely. So The Lion King is a blockbuster production, so they have a minimum of 3-week runs, and it was here back in 2009 for 5 weeks, which was great. So it's making its first appearance back in Oklahoma City in about 8-9 years, and it'll be here for 3 weeks, 24 performances.
Are there any tickets left?
Absolutely, absolutely. There are. Week 1 is pretty sold out, but when you look into weeks 2 and weeks 3, especially over the Memorial Day weekend, there's some great availability for tickets.
Well, we'll be in the last segment of this show giving information about how they can get those tickets or check into them at least. I get the sense that we here in Oklahoma City are pretty fortunate to have a facility like the Civic Center Music Hall. I can remember attending events there before the remodel that were not necessarily very comfortable from a legroom standpoint and the like.
Yeah.
That's changed dramatically, at least in my personal experience.
It has. It was there was a major renovation during the MAPS 1 project back in about 2000, 2001. So we were fortunate to have the Thelma Gaylord Theater completely renovated. It was condensed down to less seats, so more spacious, more comfortable. And kind of the lobby area and the atrium were also renovated back in 2001. But a lot of people don't know that there are actually 4 other theater areas in the Civic Center Music Hall that unfortunately were not renovated for MAPS 1. So that's a major goal of the foundation, is to raise money through naming rights, private fundraising, and perhaps public support to renovate those other theaters to make it a more versatile building for any arts organization in Oklahoma City.
How long have you had an interest in the performing arts?
Very recently. I've always had a passion for the arts, but specifically for performing arts. When you graciously appointed me to the foundation, it really spurred something that I didn't know was inside of me. So it's just my passion for the Civic Center Music Hall in general is vast, and learning the history. When I first came on the foundation, it was the 75th diamond anniversary of the Civic Center Music Hall. So it was great to learn the history of Elvis performing there, former presidents, garden shows, basketball tournaments, just the wide variety of things that have happened in the building, and how it's solidified its place in Oklahoma City history is just really remarkable.
How do we choose which of the Broadway shows will come to Oklahoma City?
It's a partnership between us and the Niederlander organization, so we jointly kind of decide on what we think is best. The goal is to bring them off Broadway to Oklahoma City as soon as possible, so that's the first goal. The second goal is to bring a variety of shows. We want shows for families. We want more mature content for adults and date nights and corporate events like that. But it's really a little bit for everyone is what we want to bring.
I mean, does Nederlander kind of have a conversation? Do they offer you choices, or do they pretty much say, look, this is what's available, this is what you got to take? What types of options are available to people in Oklahoma City to choose from?
Yeah, it's very cyclical, so it really depends on which shows are touring across the country. Some years there's a ton of shows going all over the country, and some years the inventory is very limited. So that plays a large role. But then it's Oklahoma City is a very sought-after market. It's in the middle of the country, so routing of the shows and how they get from West Coast to East Coast is very important. So most of them want to stop in Oklahoma City. So we're very much sought after by agents and the various touring Broadway shows.
Now, the touring Broadway shows, we're very lucky to have Lyric Theater here in Oklahoma City, but the touring Broadway shows are national performers based in New York or some other large city that tour the country and come to Oklahoma City. So we're really seeing a quality group of performers doing the shows.
Yes, you are seeing the show that was performed on Broadway. It was just then reconfigured to be able to fit into semis and then travel all over the country. But it's the same class of actors and actresses. Yeah. It's the same great scenes, the same music, the same scripts, everything.
Well, now, the Lion King is going to be the finale, I guess, of this particular season
Yes.
that we're finishing up now. Can you kind of look back and briefly tell us what we missed already for this season?
Yeah, absolutely. This was our inaugural season as OKC Broadway. So we had another Disney show that started our season, Disney's Newsies, about the Paperboy strike, based on a true story. A lot of people don't know, are not very familiar with the story, but it was a great Disney production. And then we moved into a classic, which was The Sound of Music. So that is also been touring lately. And we just finished up Motown the Musical, which had the great hits from that era, and was the story of Berry Gordy and how he founded Motown Records. So it was a fantastic performance with great music. You couldn't help but kind of dance in your seat a little bit. But yes, the Lion King is our finale for this season, and we're really excited and very fortunate to have them back in Oklahoma City for 3 weeks.
Let me get us to a break. We're visiting with Elizabeth Gray. She's Executive Director of the Civic Center Foundation, talking about the Broadway series, past and future. We'll have more with Elizabeth when we get back.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, and our guest today on The Verdict is Elizabeth Gray. She's the Executive Director of the Civic Center Foundation. When the Broadway plays come to Oklahoma City or another city, they don't just, come up in a VW Beetle and everybody hops out. I mean, there's trucks, and I see semis coming in. I'm thinking, I can't imagine having to set up these elaborate sets every week or every 2 weeks or every 3, depending on how the schedule flows. Give people an idea of the scale of when a show comes into the Civic Center, what comes in, and then what will exit 3 weeks later.
Yeah, absolutely. So particularly for the typical show coming on a season, it could be anywhere from 6 to 15, maybe 20 semis that
Oh my
come in.
goodness, that's even more than I would have
Yes,
suspected.
absolutely. And as you can imagine, The Lion King is on the higher end of that. They've got the big Pride Rock set piece. They've all their costume pieces and the puppetry involved in the show. It takes up a lot of room.
Yeah, well, because when you're on Broadway performing, presumably you're in the same theater in New York City for a long period of time.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden you got to figure out a way to make this mobile.
Yes.
And I would think on the production side, now maybe for the actors, it's a very similar experience in New York or in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
But I would think on the production side, it's
Absolutely.
just totally different because there's some similarities and some differences in every stop that they make. So what's the schedule when they come in, like on a Monday? What happens on a Tuesday? What happens on a Wednesday? And how many days before the first show would they have to arrive?
Yeah, so Lion King actually started moving in on Monday to the Civic Center Music Hall. So they do have to come in about a week in advance.
Now, the Monday you're talking about is on May 1st.
Yes, May 1st.
This year, it's
yes.
May 1st, yeah.
And so they come in about a week in advance of the opening, and it takes them that long to kind of unload the trucks and get everything laid out, and then to start erecting all the set pieces and, the pulleys and motor systems involved in the show. Is really vast and very complicated technically. So, but typically a Broadway show will either move in on a Monday, which it then opens the next day. And we've even had some shows this season move in on Tuesday morning and have the first performance at 7:30 on Tuesday evening. Now those make me a little nervous, but they've been doing it for a while, so they know exactly what they're doing. But it's a very it's a very well-oiled machine. We've got great local union labor here that helps out with the shows, and the traveling crew with the shows. It's kind of a perfect synergy when they come into the Civic Center Music Hall.
How many people come
Now
in
you
with the
read
show?
my mind. That's just what I was going to ask.
Just depending on the production, it could travel with a dozen or so local traveling crew members and maybe 5 to 10 musicians. So that's a big piece of the Broadway musicals is the shows will travel with their own musicians, and then we also hire locally. We've got a fantastic selection of local musicians that really step in. They rehearse once and then they can play the entire show. It's remarkable. So it just depends, 5 to a dozen, sometimes more.
Well, let's kind of take a look forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's look at next year, starting, I guess, in the fall of 2017. Can you run through your lineup?
Absolutely. We have, I'm really excited about this season. We've got a remarkable lineup. It starts in September of 2017. We open with Disney's The Little Mermaid, so that's another Disney show, which will be great, and it's really interesting. I haven't been able to see the full show, but I've seen little bits and pieces of how, the dominant part of the story happens underwater, but then they have to come onto a stage and perform it. So it's a really great production. And then it's followed up by Beautiful, the Carole King musical, which is not just about her music, it's about the story of her career and her life and how she became a songwriter. And then we have Rent coming back for the 20th anniversary tour. It's already been 20 years. We have the new production of The Color Purple after the first of the year in 2018.
And that's a musical.
Yes, it is the musical, and it's going to be similar to the one that just came off Broadway, in which Cynthia Erivo won the Tony Award for Best Actress. It was a fantastic production, and then we go into Finding Neverland, School of Rock, The Book of Mormon, back by popular demand, and we end our season with An American in Paris.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw the movie of that
Yeah.
recently.
Yes.
What a cast. Elizabeth, where do we go from here? You mentioned that the Civic Center still has some areas that could use some revitalization, some capital dollars, and I know in the bond issue that should be coming in front of voters this fall, they'll have an opportunity to vote on a wide variety of capital improvements. But part of that will be to put some some new dollars of it as an investment into some of the other places in the Civic Center.
Absolutely.
But where else? Where else? If you had a wish list about what people in Oklahoma City or could do to help promote the arts and help the mission that you and your other directors are on, what would you ask for?
Buy tickets, really. It's not just to the Broadway series, but to the Philharmonic and the Ballet and Lyric. Those are all great nonprofit organizations that really keep the arts community rich here in Oklahoma City. And they provide, it's just like the thunder. When a large organization is maybe thinking about headquartering in Oklahoma City, that yourself or the governor can go and say, we've got this great NBA team, and then look at this top-notch performing arts center that we have. And it's really about the quality of life and showing and expressing that not only to the existing citizens of Oklahoma, but also to prospective people that are thinking about moving here, just vacationing here, really anything.
What kind of staff do you have to keep these events flowing smoothly and getting tickets sold and spills cleaned up and whatever may be involved in running all these different events?
Yeah, the Civic Center Music Hall staff is also top-notch. They're really the best in the industry, and so there's anywhere on a given night from a dozen to 30 people that keep a production running from the Civic Center Music Hall staff standpoint. From the foundation standpoint, we are a small but mighty organization. It is myself and two other wonderful ladies that keep it running, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do to really keep the dollars in the building versus spending them on overhead or administration.
Well, did your group establish the partnership with the Niederlander Foundation in New York?
Yes.
And how did that come about, and what does that bring to what you can offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the Civic Center Foundation, the city, made the decision to change the Broadway presenter last season, we went out with a national request for proposals, and we got 4 great companies that responded. Which is also a testament to Oklahoma City and how people want to come in here and start businesses here. And by that process, we ultimately selected the Niederlander organization. Yeah. They're very, not only can they bring the best shows in the industry to Oklahoma City, but they're really invested in investing in the communities in which they present. They have a program which is the National High School Musical Theater Awards that they set up in each of their presenting cities, and it brings in high school kids from all over the state, and those high school kids compete for Best Actor and Best Actress, who then go on to compete in New York on Broadway. It's a really fantastic program that we're hoping to set up here in Oklahoma City at the Civic Center Music Hall through OKC Broadway in the next 2 to 3 years.
Talk a little bit about the logistics of the Thelma Gaylord auditorium there, which I guess is the main auditorium in the Civic Center.
Yes.
What's the capacity?
It seats about 2,400, completely sold out. So it's, there's, if you've ever been in there, there's the boxes on the side, which are really great. And then I tell people there's really not a bad seat in the house. The way it was reconfigured back in 2001, even if you're at the very top, you can still see the entire production. You can see the entire stage. You're hearing the same great sound as the person on the front row. And the facility, the Civic Center Music Hall, is actually getting a new sound system here over the next year or so, which will just improve the acoustics and the sound quality even more.
Talk about capacity utilization. How many nights or days a year is the Civic Center doing something?
Combining private events, which is weddings, that all the wonderful brides that want to get married in the Minders Hall of Mirrors or in the park in the front. There's about over 300 events that happen. So if you think about it, that would be every day, but typically that's just multiple events on the weekends, and a Thursday through Sunday really packed in, full of entertainment and or parties and other events.
That's amazing, and it just shows when you go in the Thelma Gaylord facility now, I mean, it still feels new. At least it does.
It
to
does.
me.
Yes.
To me,
It opened in about 2002, I think, with the redesign. But thank you for taking such good care of it and helping to provide so many great opportunities for people to enjoy the Civic Center.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Gray, the Executive
you.
Director of the Civic Center Foundation. Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here, drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. Our guest was Elizabeth Gray, who got us reminiscing about the Civic Center and its history.
Yeah, it used to be called the old Municipal Auditorium, where they had the all-college basketball tournaments played on the stage, as were the state high school championships. And as we were talking, if you ran one way, you ran into a curtain if you were on the floor. If you ran the other, you ran into the audience.
Yeah, and until the State Fairgrounds Arena was built, really Oklahoma City didn't have a place to hold large sporting events or collections of people. But yeah, until the 1960s, it was a sports facility as well as a Broadway type performing. It's hard to imagine today to go in there and picture, you know, major college basketball on the stage of the Municipal Auditorium. But indeed, the Civic Center held sporting events. We really appreciate Elizabeth coming on the show, and we have some information to give you. There's a website that has more information about the events that she discussed. It's okciviccenter.com. That's okciviccenter.com. And we have a website, theverdict.tv. You can log on, tell us about a show that you'd like to see in the future, a guest you'd like to see interviewed, or a topic you'd like to see discussed, and we'd love to help bring it to you. That's going to do it for this show. I'm Mick Cornett. That's Kent Myers. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Verdict.